Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 9 of Refactoring an Android app with our friend Rakesh. How are you doing, Rakesh?
I'm doing well, thanks.
I'm doing great as well. Can't believe we're at episode number 9. It's going to be number 10 soon. It's very exciting for us. And also at 910 subscribers, which is close to 1,000, which is amazing. I know there's people with 40 freaking million subscribers out there, but 1,000 means something to me. I don't know. Hope we get there. That's about all I want to say. I hope you like the new. Now it's called Dry Code. It's not called Dry Culture anymore. I used to make videos about culture and life things. Now it's not so often, so I found that the name makes sense more for me, and that's what I went through. Hope you like them. Let's get on with the video. So Rakesh, we want to answer questions and comments here on Reddit, stuff like that.
Yeah, I thought people are asking questions on the YouTube channel, and I noticed somebody was asking on Reddit as well. So why don't we just go through some of them? I don't
Yeah.
think we can answer everything, but we'll try and answer the ones that we think are most relevant.
Sure.
So I know a lot of people are still finding the videos for the first time. I think that's always going to happen. And so,
What do you mean?
well, say tomorrow someone stumbles upon the videos.
Mm.
So they start with episode 1, and then they got a question. Then they're going to put the question on episode 1.
Yeah.
You know, so I've gone back, but hopefully, people won't be doing that too much.
Some
but,
people even start asking questions during the episode, and then they find the answer a few minutes later.
Oh yeah, I saw that. So here's one from episode 2, and it's quite a bit here, but let's try and break it down. Where is he?
Could you maximize the view or enlarge? Zoom in, I mean.
Better?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. So this guy, Teach Me Code. What do you mean here by MVP with repository? What I can understand is you are kind of renaming the M in model as repository, right? Sorry that I am still learning MVP, so I might have misinterpreted. Can you explain? Right. So this is definitely confusing, and the reason is because the M isn't necessarily one thing. Okay, so view is obvious, presenter is obvious, but M can mean, for example, it can mean a POJO. It could mean here is the data, right? Perhaps, for example, the presenter creates the data, right? Maybe it had to do some calculations, work out from today's date or something like that, God knows what, and create something. But the point is that the M isn't actually necessarily just one thing. It could be a data model, right? Or it could be something you ask that gives you the data that you want to manipulate, right? So I think the M is quite confusing to a lot of people. Now, what we did was that we asked the repository to give us an observable of data, right? So for us, the model is the data that came from the repository. It's not the repository itself, right?
Okay.
That's just where the data came from, right? Yeah. So we treat the list of books as our model. Another way you can look at it also, and people are doing this as well, is use cases and interactors. Okay, so a lot of the stuff that we talk about is actually all about clean architecture. So this is quite an important blog post that was written a while ago by Fernando Cejas. And this is, I mean, he didn't invent it, right? This is our friend Uncle Bob, of course, right? And essentially the idea is you have something in the middle, which is your pure model, which is like, the things you care about. For us, it's books and snippets, your domain model.
Yeah.
And then outside that, you have a layer of use cases. And use cases are really like
Who needs the data?
Not who needs it. It's more like
how to present it. No, how to deliver it. Yep.
Well, think about this, right? Let's say you have an application. Let's say it's well, let's say we do have an application. We have yours.
Yeah.
Right. We know it's and it's about taking snippets. So we might well have a function. Maybe a better word is function. We have a function to get books. We have a function to add snippets to a book. We have a function to delete a book. We have a function to delete a snippet within a book.
Yeah, how to operate on the data.
Exactly. That's
not deliver.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are use cases. And the phrase use cases comes from the business world, right?
Exactly. What do you need this data for? Because it's sitting there, and you're gonna have to figure out your use case to build the application around it.
Exactly. Yeah. And like back in the day, when we used to write these huge requirement documents, the requirement documents themselves weren't written in the sense of like write. This is what the code looks like, right? They're written at a much higher level for the users, right? For business people. Yeah. So they would say things like, use case would be, like we just said, the user must be able to add books to the application. The user must be able to add snips to an existing book. Yeah. And those are sort of like, the things you want to do with the data.
Exactly.
Right?
I never thought of it this way, that you could think of any application as the nature of the data that it's working with first. We think, or I think usually, that it's just the screens that make up the application. The screens are on the outermost layer.
That's right.
The screen core is just of what you're working with, the nature of your data and what you're doing with it.
Yeah, and also the screen is it just happens to be your implementation platform.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It has nothing to do with what you really desire to have seeing in a phone or in a software or anything. That's the data part. You want to manipulate car data, or you want to manipulate book data. That's snippet. Snippet is not screen 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and also, data just sitting there not being touched is no good to anybody, right? Yeah. Obviously, you want to manipulate data. You want to add to it. You want to modify it and update it and delete it and all these things. That is what an application is. Yeah. And then I think what this diagram shows, though, is that it doesn't matter whether you're doing Android development, web development, or something else.
It has nothing to do with it, yeah.
There is a higher level of looking at all these things, right?
This could be made for non-software stuff. This is no.
Maybe.
I don't know. The presenters part poses an issue, but I would remove the presenters and put the UI. That would apply to any software, to any appliance you find in your house or out there.
Well, if you just think about the two, the entities and use cases, right? If you can define all this, you've pretty much defined what your application is about.
Exactly. It's
right?
Just those two.
Here's the things you care about: your entities, your domain models. The things that you're about.
And what do you want to do
here's all the things you want to do to it. The rest of it just depends on like whether you're doing it on Android or you're doing it on the web or whatever. So, for example, we use MVP, right? But the reason we do MVP is because we can't do MVC, right? MVC, model view controller.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
If this was a web application, for example, we could use MVC, and we probably choose that over this one.
So why not controller on the mobile?
Right. The problem with that is we don't control the lifecycle on Android. So I used to be a Spring developer, right? So I used to do a lot of back-end web work.
Java,
yeah, in Java and using Spring. Now, the idea was that you would have this class called a controller, right? And what would happen is that a request would come in and it would go into the controller, and then the controller would decide what to do with that request. Right? So similar to a presenter, yeah? But in MVP, we have the view implementation creating the presenter and then calling methods on the presenter and all that. It's a bit different with MVC. With MVC, you hook it up, right? And a lot of it's all boilerplate, and it's all done for you by the frameworks and everything. All you need to do is create a class, you annotate it and say, okay, when this URL comes in, call this method.
I saw that at work on Friday, by the way. There was a routes file and there was a controller file, and the routes file said which methods from the controller to use when this method is called on this URL, etc. You map them together, you find out the API, how it works, and which methods to look for. I had to do that on Friday.
Spring takes it one step further and allows you to use annotations where you can put your URLs that you had in your routing file, right?
But this
Instead,
is Laravel.
You can actually attach the annotation to the method to call.
But this was Laravel. Isn't it supposed to be like cutting edge and newer than Spring?
Laravel is PHP framework, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can't have access to the annotations unless they have an annotation processor.
I know nothing about Laravel and PHP, so I don't even know if annotations are supported.
I just didn't see them when I opened the file. That's all I'm basing my sentence on.
But this is, but the point being, it's a similar concept, right? But we can't do that because on Android, because we don't control the lifecycle, right? So when I do my unit testing, for example, in the web world, I can create a controller quite easily and test it really easily. Yeah, they've given you all the hooks. But on Android, unfortunately, the lifecycle is owned by the platform.
Yeah. But it does allow you to hook in wherever you want.
Yes, but it doesn't allow you to new it. I could always new a controller up in the old world.
Right.
Yeah, so we've had to do a slight adjustment. And Martin Fowler's got some good stuff on all this. So if you want to dig a bit deeper, we can go into there. But anyway, get back to this, right? So you could even say that your use case is your model. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So the point being, you've got a view, you've got a presenter, and then you've got something that represents the data that you are dealing with. And that could be, like I just said, it could have been a Pojo that you created. It could have been some Pojos that you got from calling a repository. It could be the use case, and the use case will basically look a bit like a repository in the sense that it's a class that takes parameters maybe that you got from the front end and returns data to send to the view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question here, go on.
Yeah, let me finish this because it's really important. The reason use cases are used is because what we have in our application at the moment, let me show you. You know our presenter?
Yes.
Where is our presenter? There's our presenter test. Let's go to our presenter. Right, you know our presenter? It doesn't do anything except get books and then send it to the view, correct? But let's say it had a lot more that we wanted it to do here, right? Let's say we wanted to get the data from the database. Let's say we wanted to write something to share preferences. Let's say we wanted to make some changes to the model in some way and then send that to the view. Basically, there's more going on than just take it and send it.
Yeah.
Now, that chunk of code is business logic, right? And you could argue that if I put it here, right,
you're wrong.
And then I go off and I do some other presenter, I might end up doing it there as well.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have substantial logic here, then later on you find that you've also got substantial logic which looks very much the same in a different presenter for a different screen, then it's duplicated.
That's true.
So what this use case is about is saying, well, look, here's this one function. So what you can do here is instead of doing this, you can say, you could ask for a use case, which is get books.
Yeah.
And then you basically, pass it anything, which in our case is nothing. There's no parameters to pass, but it will just give you a list of books.
So this thing you're going to type, that's the business logic that says sort them by something. This, for example, falls into the repository or into the model, which is, we're saying it's the use case, it's the model, it's the thing that gets you the stuff, the data.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And if there's associated logic that goes with it as well, it would be a good place to put it into the use case rather than putting it throughout your presenters.
So the presenter is less. So the presenter is less. It has less to do with the business logic than the model does. The model has more to do with the business logic.
Yes, the model is the business logic in many ways.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
what you
and the less
shouldn't
the
do,
presenter has to do, the better.
the thing that MVP prevents you from doing, from mixing up, is business logic with UI.
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
That's where it really helps, and
so not everything
and
is
also,
so not everything is separated, and some things should be together. I thought that I didn't really think that, but when you think of MVP, you think of like everything must be in its own thing, and it complicates things because sometimes it's more convenient to have something in another thing, like this use case here. Like someone needs to harbor this code to hold it, the stuff that says sorted by name. Someone needs to handle it, and you can't go off and create also a filterer or another layer that filters the data and then just put it in the model.
yeah.
Like you could have get books sorted, get books not sorted, you know?
And the other nice thing, of course, is that when you want to test all that stuff, you don't need Android. It's all pure Java, right?
Yeah.
And and it's really easy to test. So where were we? Yeah. So we were just saying that. Oh, and what I do at my current workplace, for example, they literally call a class something. So if this, for example, was done in the style that my current app that I'm working on at work does it would be called a book model. I would actually have to create a class called a book model and use that in here instead of the repository. And that book model class would actually have the reference to the repository.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the presenter doesn't know about the repository, doesn't know about the layers below and how they all work. All it knows is I've got this class called a book model, and I'm going to ask it to get the books for me, and it's going to give me the books.
This is so religious. It's too much.
Religious? Yeah, well, this is software development, right? So the point being, of course, there are I mean, what I'm trying to highlight, though, is, of course, that, a model is an overloaded term, right? And it can mean different things to different people. And that's fine.
So basically,
the question is, I think what we've done is a very rough, straightforward implementation where we're talking directly to repository to get the data from the database, but you can hide it behind another layer if you want to. And as applications get bigger and more complex, it makes more sense to do that. I don't think we've hit it though yet, but maybe we will. I don't know. But
so did I answer correctly? The repository pattern is a way of representing the kind of the actions and queries. Yeah, that could be called a use case.
Yeah, and actually could be called that. Well, a model should be very dumb. Actually, well, that's wrong.
That's wrong.
It can be dumb. It can be dumb, but there are variations where the model actually contains all the logic, just so that the presenter doesn't have to know about it.
That's the strict kind of model that I meant, which is the POJO. Now that you're saying it's not only a POJO, it can be something else, then this statement is wrong. Because I thought every model is just a POJO.
It doesn't have to be. Nope, doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to get the model from somewhere, right? So that whole thing is called the model, if you like. Okay, and this leads on to something I've been meaning to mention a few times. You know what? I've forgotten. It's gone off the top of my head. If I remember it, I'll come back to it. Anyway, let's move on to the next question.
Okay.
Okay, people are asking about our lifecycle usage of the presenter. We create it in onCreate.
Yeah, why didn't we destroy it?
We did destroy it. We destroyed it in onStop. Oh, no, we didn't explicitly destroy it because...
We didn't.
Do you think we should? And how do you think we should do that?
Well, because we started it in onStart. We didn't even start it in onStart, by the way. We didn't move it. It's still inside onCreate.
Correct. We can do that. We can do that.
Yeah.
But my question, but you asked about what should we do in onStop. At the moment, what we do is we tell the presenter to unsubscribe.
Do we?
Yeah.
Then that's covered, but we didn't move the thing, the initialization to onStart. Okay, because we found that onDestroy is not very reliably called every time. That's why we put it inside the the on stop, which is definitely called, which I cannot confirm that either.
Okay, I think we should ask our viewers a
There
question
it
here,
is.
because this is something even I'm not 100% sure about, right?
Okay. What?
Is this will the presenter instance disappear with the activity if it's destroyed?
Well, definitely. Well, it's back. It's actual Java, where if something is not pointing to it anymore, it's up for garbage collection.
I believe so too, but
yeah.
if someone can confirm, because the presenter knows about the view, right, via the interface.
Well, you have this passed to it. That's dangerous.
Yeah, and also the book's activity was responsible for creating the presenter in the first place and has it as a field anyway. So the question is, if Android destroys the activity, right, will it also destroy the presenter instance as well? So maybe one of our viewers can tell us.
Yeah. What I suspect is that there was this article by Simon VT about how async task back in the day, about how it was bad because people used to pass this to it, and the activity where it was created did not instantiate a new async task, or did it? I'm not sure, but there was definite memory leak on there. That's why you shouldn't call async task in that way that he referred to. If I can
the problem with async tasks was that they took an instance, they took a reference to the activity, right? So the async task would go off and do something, right, in the background, like download from the network.
Yeah.
In the meantime, the view is supposed to be killed, right? The view gets destroyed, the activity gets destroyed.
Yeah.
But what happens though is that the async task still has a reference to it, and then when it comes back, it tries to use it, and it's not there, and it blows up.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, there's a lot of problems with async tasks. I don't use them myself. I don't think we need to use them. Anyway, so I've changed this code to be like this. So on start, it news it up and then does this. So actually, one thing I think we should do at some point is, instead of doing this, we need to start using Dagger to do this for us. So we can have a presenter injected into.
Oh, for sure.
Into here, right?
Next episode.
Yeah, maybe next episode. Okay, where are we on the list? Okay, so we covered that. I think that was it. Okay, what's next?
This one.
Okay, this is a big one. Right. Okay, observe on and subscribe on operators inside presenter. Okay, now the important thing here is to realize there is no one answer that's right in all cases. Okay, you've just got to work it out for your situation. I've done it in the presenter because it made the most sense. It's when we're taking control over the logic, and we know we want to do something on a background thread, and then we want to come back onto the foreground thread, right? Some people have said, I think even this guy here, Joseph, even he was saying about how he had his repository, his database code, automatically coming off the main thread and going onto a background thread. But one thing I wasn't too. I think this is some of the code he showed actually.
How'd you find that?
No, he put it in here somewhere. Where did he put it?
Press on read. Oh, it's show less actually.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that one's a different one. That's from the Reddit one, which we'll get to next. So, actually, I wonder if we obviously need two threads, though, right?
Yeah, but I don't think he was asking that his code automatically goes off the main thread. He's purposely saying that. Where is it? He's purposely sending it off. Like show progress, get random joke, new observable. Okay, where is it? Here it is. Subscribe on the scheduler's IO, observe on main thread. He's asking for this.
Okay, look, interestingly, look, he's used an interactor. So you know how we were saying about use cases or model classes like I'm using at work? Another one is interactor. You see, all these terms are all very similar and
Yeah.
are all to do with the model.
Yeah.
So he's called it an interactor, which I think is what Uncle Bob originally called it as
But
well.
it's
So an
very
interactor is actually
unsuitable
the
as a
business logic.
name.
Sorry?
It's very unsuitable as a name. It's not interacting with anything. It's just fetching stuff.
No, but internally it's interacting with whatever services it needs to, like the DB repository or the network or whatever, right? I agree it's not the most fantastic naming convention, but
Because
I think
everything
it
is an
was there from a
interaction,
very
you
long
know?
time ago. Yeah.
Okay. So he's sending what?
I was just going to tell you a joke.
Sure.
What
A
are the
random
two
joke?
hardest things? Huh?
A random joke from Joseph's program? He
No.
gets random
Well,
jokes.
it's because of what you said about interactor and how it's a bad name.
Okay, go
right?
ahead.
What are the two hardest problems in computer science?
Naming things. And floating point arithmetic?
No.
Binary, I don't know.
Naming things, cache invalidation, and off by one errors.
So that's 2 and that's 3. That's a nice joke because it's 2 things, but it's off by 1, so it's actually 3. I'm gonna have to memorize that. Nice.
Okay, I think. Well, so basically what he's saying is he's put the scheduling inside the interactor, so not in the presenter, at the next layer up.
Yeah.
Now, I can't say whether that's right or wrong, but I would say, though, that to me, the presenter feels like it owns going back onto the main thread. Because what if the result isn't meant to go onto the main thread? I mean, I know it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes the result might come back to the presenter and, you want to do something else with it, maybe.
Okay.
But I don't know, it's hard. It's one of those things that, I can't definitively say it's wrong.
But the question here is, in this case, I will not have issues with threads in my tests, right?
Only in his presenter test. How is he going to test his interactor?
So I said you will have an issue with threads in your tests because during tests you will want to use only JDK and no Android SDK is involved. So you cannot use this line which says main thread unless you specifically mock that. That's the issue he's gonna have.
I think what he's not addressing though is that okay, so you move those two out from the presenter so you don't have a problem when it comes to testing. Fine.
Yeah.
But then now they're in the interactor. How do you test your interactor?
Well, how does he?
I mean, it's just been moved to another class. Does he answer that?
No, we just keep dwelling about the same thing actually.
Well, then the question to go back to him is, now that you've moved into your interactor, how are you going to test your interactor? Because all he's done is moved it to the next level.
Okay, so what's going to happen? Why wouldn't he be able to do that?
Do what?
To test his interactor now that he's moved the problem to there.
I didn't say he couldn't. I'm just saying that he says the solution to us with the presenter was to take the threading out.
I don't think he said. Where did he say that? He just posted all this code and asked the final question in a sentence here.
Yeah, I will not have issues in my threads. The only but he won't have an issue in the presenter. Yeah. But what about the interactor? Right?
That's true.
So he doesn't actually say whether he's testing his interactors. And if he's not testing his interactors, he's not doing it right.
Well, there's no way you're not going to have any issues with threads in your tests. It's too general of a question. Of course, there might be an issue somewhere. It's not really answerable, honestly.
I would say, Joseph, if you understand what we just said to you, then, respond back and let us know. So the question really is, sure, you moved the threading out of the presenter, so now you can test your presenter, but you moved into your interactor. How are you going to test your interactor?
Look what he says here. Isn't the whole idea behind MVP that view and model shouldn't know anything about each other? That is not...
The reason I'm asking this, I think you shouldn't pass new repository as argument from activity. Well, I know this is really screwed up, right? And it doesn't make much sense, but actually, you're supposed to think of the class that implements the view as being independent from the view.
The class that implements the view as being independent from view. That's right.
When we talk about MVP and we talk about V, we are talking about an interface, right? We're talking about something general that we can speak to update the view, correct? But really, the job of newing up the presenter isn't a view job.
Yeah.
Right? It just happens that the class implementing the view also is doing this thing, but it's not a view responsibility to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
The reason
But
I'm
who
asking
else is gonna do it? You know?
I think you shouldn't pass. Well, in our case, we can get a Dagger to do it, right? I think you shouldn't pass new repository as argument from activity. I think you should just pass book view. Okay. The reason I'm asking is I think you shouldn't pass new repository as argument. Yeah, but the only reason I'm doing new repository is because I haven't used Dagger yet. And as soon as we you start using Dagger properly, then we can put the repository in there. And we can also get Dagger to create the presenter. So then, really, all we need to have in our activity is inject presenter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we just haven't got there yet. But that's the road we're on, and we'll get there. And though, to be honest with you, dude, I mean, I've written lots of apps without using Dagger, and I have done it this way, and it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It works.
But yeah, he is right about asking about that. Like the ideal way for me would be Dagger.
I think. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was only newing it up because I knew right there and then that it wasn't used anywhere else, and it's not great because it does a bit of work, doesn't it, in the constructor to initialize the OpenSQLite thingy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely something we want to fix at some point. Yeah. Good question. Good questions.
Did you figure out what this guy was asking? I think it was too complicated.
I have a general question about the map operation. I get the data from the database on the IO thread. Then I pass it along to the view on the UI thread. Okay. Let's say I made a map to transform the data from one type of item to another. Okay. Nothing really mathematically complex, just turning my DB data into presentable, clear information. Should I keep it on the IO thread, move it over to a third? Okay. If it's, yeah, do you understand what he's saying? He's basically saying, right?
He just wants to turn the DB stuff into an actual model he has. Because sometimes he doesn't control
here we get the list.
Yeah.
Right?
He's running some operation on it.
Yeah. Map. So let's say we want to do map, right? And we want to, turn this list into a list of something else, for example, right? So he's asking about, what thread should we do that on? Okay. Now,
can you control which thread it goes on, this operation?
Sorry?
It takes another parameter, which is this thread it's supposed to run on?
No, it doesn't take a parameter. You just have to put another operator like subscribe on.
It knows that this subscription is for the map?
Yes, it depends where you put the subscribe on. So
like if right after the map, okay. I think it's an order issue.
Yeah, so if we do it there, it'll still be in schedulers.io.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure we could play with that at some point. But in his case, he specifically said it's not very mathematically complex. Then I would say
doesn't mean it's not heavy.
Thread. What?
Doesn't mean it's not heavy. It can be heavy. It does not have anything to do with math.
Well, no, he specifically said not really mathematically complex. So then I would say leave it on the IO thread. Now, I think the rule is in Android pretty much try and get everything off the UI thread if you can. Okay, so I don't think it matters that the IO thread was doing something that wasn't strictly IO for a few more milliseconds. I don't think that's a big deal. But if it does end up becoming quite a bit of work, then I would suggest, use computation, right?
Okay.
But that's rare. I mean, it's really rare that you want to do that amount of work on stuff. But, you never know. It might happen. But I think for your specific thing, let's keep the UI thread clean as much as possible.
Thanks for asking, Vasily.
Yeah,
what's next?
Okay, so again, we're back to talking about threading. So somebody asked this on Reddit. Now, by the way, if whoever wrote this is also listening to this and watching this, and let's encourage people to interact with us on the YouTube channels, because the thing is, I only randomly saw this, right? And this is the sort of stuff that we want to talk about. So it'd be really good if these people weren't, doing it randomly over there where I might happen to see it. It'd be really good if you could sort of, engage it with us, But luckily I saw it anyway because I'm addicted to Reddit and I'm always on this forum anyway.
Cool.
So I was watching some videos about switching to MVP RX Java and writing tests before that. Anyway, the guys, that's us.
Oh, writing there those presenters. Is.
Yeah, and test for that presenter had an issue. Do you remember how, it all went wrong because, I knew it'd go wrong, but that was the point of learning, right? Here's what they did. They were using RX Java for returning the observables from database, and inside the presenter, they had the method, and they called the operators subscribe on and observe on, which we still have, right? So the test failed because it runs on one thread, and sometimes method on view doesn't get called. I didn't understand it well. Maybe someone knows what I'm trying to say. Okay, so do you want to give this a go? Because, it took you a while to understand why it's failed, but do you know why it failed?
Of course I know why it failed. Let me tell you. Let's go back to the question. Where's the question? Can you go back to it? Okay. So the test fails.
Well, hold on. Okay, what actually happened was, what he's saying is, do you remember when I added these two lines?
Yeah.
And it was saying observe on Android
main thread and
schedulers.io, right?
It failed in the test, not in real life.
Correct.
Yeah. So what he's asking,
why?
Can you go back to the thing? So he's asking test failed because it runs on one thread. That's not why the test failed. The test failed was because it was an Android library.
Well, that was the first problem.
Is he talking about that one?
No, I think what he's saying is basically that by introducing multiple threads, the test no longer finished.
It was a race condition.
Before.
It's not a race condition, but one finished before the other.
Yeah, correct.
So you're having two threads. One goes out to run the test, and inside that one is another thread that goes out and does the getting of the books. The test is finished. The other guy comes back, finds out the test is finished, doesn't have the books. The verify. What does it verify? The display books isn't called. It fails.
Yes. Exactly.
So if you don't have the verify, it's gonna pass, but you need to verify it. So you couldn't have caught it.
Well, if you don't have the verified, it's meaningless, right?
You wouldn't have caught it.
All you did was run some code. You don't know if it worked or not.
That's true.
But the problem was that, exactly like you said, the thread running your tests is going to come in and it's going to run, and then it's not going to wait for the other thread to finish before it goes to here.
Yeah.
So that was the problem, right?
And the solution was...
Well, I hope that he understood that was the problem. And then the solution, and this comes back to our friend David from RX Java. Actually, where is he? Is he... We mustn't forget.
Not in this one.
Yeah, he added something very important, which is related to this. Here he is.
That trampoline wasn't...
Yeah, I thought trampoline was a specific thread. But what he's saying is that it's more like a first in, first out execution that serializes tasks. Because really, the problem we were having was that we had multiple threads that weren't waiting for each other.
Yeah.
So the fix for our tests was, let's get all the threads
back on the main one.
Work that we wanted, all using one thread. Let's get them all on one thread.
No,
and then the work can happen one after another.
It's not. They're not using one thread. It's two threads, but they both come back to the main one.
So, imagine
if it's two
imagine
threads,
a thread.
Yeah.
Imagine a thread as a pipe, right?
Okay.
And what we did for our tests is essentially have one pipe.
Yeah.
But we've used it in two places.
Exactly.
So the work, and also what will happen is that the first in, first out. So whatever job we give that thread to do will get done in order, right?
Mm-hmm.
So its uses are resolving reentrant situations and or running unit tests without actual concurrency if all components use trampoline, basically. So basically what we've done is we've taken our production code, which is meant to run using multiple threads, these two.
Mm-hmm.
But for test purposes, we've got them both to use the same thread.
Okay.
Yeah.
So over there, who gets passed as main scheduler from outside from the activity?
For tests or for real world?
For real world.
For real world, whoever calls this, what do they pass in?
The Android.
They pass in Android.
Okay. For the tests.
For the tests, we did something else, didn't we? We passed in.
Can you go to the... Okay. What did we pass in? The trampoline, which basically, you said, represents the main one.
I didn't say it represents the main one.
Or what did you say?
I said it represents whatever the current thread is.
The current thread, okay.
Which in this, you got to be careful with the word main thread because we have Android schedule. We have an Android main thread, right? So you have to be careful.
So the current one.
Yeah, the current one, which in our case is this one running the tests.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it comes in here, blah blah blah, and also here's where we set the IO scheduler to also use the same one under the covers.
1 second though, if you go back to the presenter.
Yes.
Okay, there's the presenter. So schedulers.io is fine by the test to be ran. You know? Yeah, that's exactly. It's very simple. In real life you pass whatever is valid, which is the Android mains, the Android schedulers.main, and in the test scenario you cannot pass in Android schedulers, but you have to say that it's two threads but used as one. It's not two threads. It's two instances referring to the same thread. No,
correct.
Not really, because schedulers is a different thread than the one that the test is running on. So they are two threads. They're just coming back to one thread. This guy is different.
When?
Huh?
Are you asking a question or are you explaining it?
I'm making sure that there are two threads here. The one running the test and schedulers.
The point is, right, there are two threads, correct?
Yes.
Now, what if, right? Well, one is passed in, and one is hard coded.
Yep.
Now, what if that was also passed in? Right?
Yeah.
And then we gave it the Android main thread and then the Android main thread.
It's going to run into the same...
They would both be running on the same thread, right?
Yeah.
Which is the main thread, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing is, we really want it to be, we want the subscribe on, which is what this runs on, which is what this runs on, to be on an IO thread.
Yes.
Because it's going to go to the database.
And go back to the test thread.
And we want the observe on to be on the Android main thread because it's going to talk to the UI, correct?
Yeah.
So that's what we want at runtime in our application.
Yeah.
For real, right?
Yeah.
Correct? Now, when it comes to tests, though, we can't use the real threads.
True.
Right? We can't. We're just not allowed to use the real threads because we're running with the JVM and the Android main thread isn't, available to us, right? And the other problem we got is, do you remember how I was able to fix the problem with the test by putting a sleep in?
Yes.
But that's not a good solution, right?
Nope.
So what we want is a solution that we can, if this thread wasn't the main thread or was some other thread, right? It won't work when it comes to running on an Android device because it has to be the main thread.
Yeah.
But our test doesn't really care.
No, it won't. They're going to pass.
Yeah. It doesn't really care what thread we give it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we did, right? We gave it trampoline.
Okay.
Now, that solves one of our problems, which is the usage of Android classes, right? But it doesn't solve the other problem, which was the race condition.
True. It's still
because
not.
we still have two different threads.
Yeah.
So then we solve that by only having one thread being used in the test. And the way we solve that is by basically cheating, because RxJava gives you these hooks, and say, look, I know it says schedulers.io, but actually for the test, when they ask for schedulers.io, I don't want you to give them a schedulers.io. I want you to give them trampoline as well.
This is the line. This is the line that matters. This is the line that says
so essentially,
they're actually one thread, and just give them the main thread. This is the one that makes or breaks it.
Don't say main thread. It's not the main thread.
Yeah.
Don't say main thread.
The thread of
the
focus.
Thread that's being used by the test.
The focus thread. Yeah. If this line weren't there, this would break.
Yeah. So the production code doesn't know any of this, what we've done.
No.
Okay? All it knows is here are the threads I've been told to use. It doesn't know they're the same thing.
Yep.
And so, ta-da! We got rid of the race condition because now, because of the way trampoline works, anything you ask it to do, it's just going to put it in a queue and do it one by one as they come through.
And that's how it's going to stay. We're going to take this to our grave. No one should know about this. He actually, David...
I don't think it's a big secret, but anyway.
Yeah. I think David in another place said that trampoline was not what we thought it was.
Well, I said to him that I thought that trampoline was somehow the thread, a specific thread that you could use, but I don't think you can.
Is that the same? I think that's the same comment. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, what's good to know, I think, is that it's really useful for our scenario of testing.
All right, that's very clear. I hope it's clear to the person who asked the question. If you have any more questions, just hit us up, just not on Reddit, on a different thread. If you like, you can use the same thread. Now we're talking about threads. I mean the Reddit threads. You can hit us up on the same thread that I post on the videos. Those are open to questions. I never see people comment on those directly. It's always on another thread for some reason.
I mean, I'll keep an eye out, but it'd be good if people just interacted on the...
You know what would be cool? To have something like... Google had this Google Notify or something where you could keep an eye on something like a term or a trend or some specific search criteria that it would notify you about. Reddit should have something like that.
Yeah, maybe. We haven't finished all the questions though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
you can go on.
So we answered this one, right? Which is to do with the fact that we're using two threads and the tests are failing. Then this guy here says we should never do this.
Why?
But those should be hidden behind interface and be provided from view layer through some function. This way they can provide test scheduler for unit testing purposes.
What?
Okay, let's forget about this second half because that's to do with loopers and God knows what, which isn't really relevant. This guy doesn't know anything about our videos, right? But anyway, this thing is interesting, right? Now, there is actually something else we can do, which I've done in the past, is that this ends this situation here, especially when it says Android schedulers.main thread, right? Turns out to be okay. So this is another way of solving this problem, right? So we do this. Look, let's go back to this, right? Okay. But we now know that even though that will work at runtime, we can't test this.
Yep.
Right? Because we're not allowed to talk to Android classes, right? So there is something we can do, which is something that comes with it called compose, right? And what compose is you can compose stuff together. So watch this. This is what I mean. Single transformer. Okay, I'm pretty sure that this needs to be. Oh, I'm trying to work out how to do this now. It's been a long time.
What's the gist?
The idea is that you can provide something that contains the two threads that you're interested in using as an object, but it contains both things. And then what you can do is then you can provide that where it's needed, and the code doesn't know what threads you're meant to use. It just says like just use this thing.
Yeah, but if
And
the
then we can
code
mock it.
doesn't know, then you don't know. You have to go through looking through another file. It's a hassle.
Java transformer example threads. So it's another technique, if you like, is what I'm trying to say, right?
Okay.
It's just another technique for doing what we did, right? So here we go. Right. So here's the same thing he's having as well. He's got this all over the place, right? He's got this all over the place. And so what you can do is, here we go. Apply schedulers. Then wrap your observable chain. Oh, no, that's not a good way of doing it. Okay, here we go. Transformers. Let's write a method that creates a schedulers transformer. See? Compose, apply schedulers.
Yeah. Okay. It's a convenience. It doesn't really solve something if you have it broken.
Well,
the
thing is
plugin
now,
line solves the problem, not this line.
the thing is now though that
he didn't
we
answer the
don't
guy's
have to.
question. He was talking about something completely different, which is the inconvenience of having these two lines repeated. It has nothing to do with what the guy asked. He just stuck on. That's why he said first of all.
So he's saying don't do this.
Yeah.
So what should you do instead?
What you just said.
Okay, so sorry, I don't understand when you say I'm not answering the question. I am answering the question.
He is not answering the question.
Oh, he's not answering the question.
He's talking about the way the code is. He's not answering. The second part has to do with what the guy asked, I think.
Yeah, but none of this, I think, is relevant, really, because...
the whole answer is not relevant.
Well, no, I mean, you have to remember that people are asking questions and we're trying to answer them, but also we're trying to look at these questions and see if they also allow us to talk about things too. Cool. So this was interesting because, you know, we're in this situation, and what I'm trying to show here is there's another way that we could pass in what threads to use without actually mentioning them explicitly in the production code.
Yeah.
So that means if our code doesn't know about Android main schedulers, Android schedulers.main thread or schedulers.io, instead it gets passed something that contains the threads, which at runtime will be this and this, but for our tests will just be trampoline for both of them. That's another way we can solve this problem.
Yeah, would it be like a variable or a container that has these values in them?
So what it'll be an instance of a class, and what we could have done is we could have put them in Dagger and have them supplied.
But this is a method that says apply schedulers. Where's the method going to be sitting?
Normally you could create a RxUtils class.
Oh.
And just stick it in there.
It sounds like a lot of abstraction, and it's very cryptic. I don't know. So many things that do things that none of them really do anything, but together they do something. It's so
welcome to reactive
fragmented.
programming, dude.
It's really fragmented.
Yeah, I know it seems that way. Well, actually, another way you can do it is you can have this method if you want it in the presenter, but the only problem is it's going to appear in other places.
You should just put this in Dagger, the provide schedulers, as a... No, it can't be a variable or something. It can't be a thing. Can it be an object? Return observer, that's an object.
Why is that red? Oh. we'd have to play with this for a while. But yeah, and that's another technique anyway. You don't have, I mean, you know, the guy's got a point, but you know, it's not the end of the world. But
no, yeah.
But if you weren't happy with this, you can absolutely take it out. And here's a blog post showing you how you could possibly do it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We're running about 55 minutes.
Okay, I think that's it really. Except that this guy goes how he solves a problem, and interestingly, he puts the threading information inside his repository, which is interesting. So he's got a class called data service, right?
Yeah.
And look, get movies, service.get movies, and he does subscribe on and observe on here. Look, but thing is, this also is very similar to, this is a model.
Yeah.
See, everybody calls these things different things, and it's fine, you know. But he's like the other question who put it in the interactor. Same thing here, except he hasn't called it an interactor. He's called it a data service, and in here he's done it here. So again, he's just moved up from the presenter. So whether to do it in a presenter or to do it one layer up, I don't know if there's a definitive answer. You've just got to work it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have a lot of code.
Yeah, if it's taking up too much in one file or something, but it doesn't impede the performance. I don't know.
Well, in Fernando's blog post, he talks about creating. He does actually have a lot to say about threads, and look, his use cases get given a thread executor. So you know he's got an opinion about doing it in the layer above as well. So his use cases run on. Look, he's got a thread executor. He's got a post execution thread as well.
So complicated.
Look, he's put it in. Look, subscribe on, observe on.
Yeah.
So maybe a best practice, especially if your app gets big, is to not do it in the presenter and to do it in the layer above.
Okay.
But anyway, I recommend people go off and find out about this stuff for themselves and come to their own conclusion.
This is high level shit, bro.
Well, this is what a lot of it is if you want to get to the next level, right?
Yeah.
You've got to think about shit like this.
It's complicated.
Right? That's what it is.
You need to sit down and try and yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's how it is. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about this. But good questions, by the way. Good questions.
Yeah, really advanced stuff. I don't want to like belittle anyone, but I didn't know that there was so many people who are already very aware of all of this. Like people who are have been doing this for a long time, it seems.
Yeah, it depends who you hang out with, right?
Exactly. You never know that they're there unless you become similar or rub shoulders with them or something. Well, that's pretty cool. I think the next episode will be about Dagger, or would you like to implement some of the stuff we've been talking about today in there?
I think probably Dagger, right?
Dagger. All right. Well, if there's one thing I know more about than Rakesh, let's hope so. It's Dagger because I tried it first. So maybe next episode I'll take my I'll take a swing at trying to explain it. Maybe he can verify the information. Until then, that's about it. No? Yeah.
Yep. That's enough for me.
All right. See you in the next episode, guys.
Okay,
Goodbye.
bye.
Don't forget to subscribe because it's good for you. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.